Okay, so welcome to this talk. My name is Hanno. I work at InfoSupport as an IT consultant. I'm both an Oracle ace and a Java champion, just like Elias was announced earlier today. One of the things I love doing is teaching others about Java development and also about version control. And that's the reason why this talk today is about version control. I want to apologize for my voice. I've been a bit sick last week, and well, the voice is the final component of my body that is coming back to me, right? So sometimes it's a bit creaky, but I'll do my best. So version control. I actually teach a course to our junior colleagues and sometimes also people that work at our customers about Git. And the idea for this talk actually came from one of the questions that one of my students asked me. I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But basically, Git is adequate, right? It can do the things that we want it to do. Maybe nice to see a quick show of hands. Who of you is currently using Git for version control? Okay, all of you. Who is using a different version control system? Ah, which one?
Mercurial.
Mercurial. Okay, thank you. Very cool of you to stand up, stand out from the rest. Kudos.
That's just what I was used to.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, Mercurial and Git, of course, can be compared when it comes to features. And by now we all probably know that Git is omnipresent, right? And it is supported in so many platforms. And I kind of get that because there are a lot of features that are likable, right? Easy branching, the distributed nature. You can work offline on your commits and push them when you're back online, right? For travel or something. But do we actually like everything about Git? I mean, do we like having to amend your commits or changing commit messages when you have typed the wrong one? Do you like committing to the wrong branch and then having to fix that? Do you like running a diff and then getting nothing in return? Oh yeah, that is because I already added it to the staging area, right? And I have to provide some obscure flag to make sure that I actually get the diff back. Do we like the conflicts that we get when we do merging or rebasing? Do we like getting the same conflicts over and over again when we need long-lived branches, for example? Or, I think we've all been there, having to do a fresh clone of the repository because the local copy is just too messed up to repair. I know I have been there. And finally, do we like the heated team debates on should we do rebase or merge, right? Well, those are a few things that I can miss, actually. And I know I'm not alone on this because I read this tweet some time ago. One of the most unintuitive, clunky interfaces of any software that I've ever used. So there are a few more people who are not really a big fan of everything in Git, right? So what started out as yay Git can, in some days, turn into dang it Git, right? Dang it Git, why won't you work for me? Why is there something wrong all the time? And actually, I didn't come up with this nice sentence because there's a website for that called dangitgit.com. There's no internet here, but I preloaded it for you, right? This is dangitgit.com. It's just a listing of all the stuff that should be easy to fix, but is only easy to fix when you actually know the name of the construct that helps you fix it, right? So Katie Sire Miller created this web page just to make sure that all the things that go wrong and all these different causes of things that could go wrong with Git actually point to a solution. So do look that up if you think that's useful. So to summarize, I don't always like Git's snapshot-based approach when changes are traveling. So for example, if you rebase or cherry pick the identity of the commit changes, right? So the content of the commit is similar, of course, but a new commit gets created. So the identity changes. And there's not an easy way to fix a conflict once and for all. On top of that, Git has many internal operations that are available to every user, but we're not even sure if we should use them, right? All these internals are exposed to us. And finally, the documentation. I also don't really like the documentation of Git. I mean, it's adequate, again, but the features that we need often are buried in some obscure command line argument. Another website for that, by the way, is this one. It's the Git man page generator. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that, but it's kind of a joke website. It looks like this, and it generates an explanation for some Git internal operation that looks legit, right? But if you would refresh the page, an entirely different explanation would appear for the same internal operation, and it would still look legit, right? So that illustrates the point nicely, I think. But you know, as long as there are no better alternative available, it's probably fine to use, right? I want to stress that I don't hate Git, right? I use it on a daily basis. It is adequate. It can do what it promises to do. But I think better approaches exist, and this is what I want to tell you about today. I'm putting up a chart on the screen that is about the year that existing version control systems were published. And it actually compares them to the mobile phones that were available in the same time. So for example, when you talk about CVS, it's this ancient thing with a power plug right here. And Subversion relates to the Nokia 3310, the indestructible phone, right? This is actually a slide that I show my students in the Git course that I teach. And I mainly focus on the year 2005, when the licensing model for BitKeeper changed and a lot of new distributed version control systems appeared, among them Mercurial and Git. But like I said, I had a question from a student a few years ago, and she asked me, it looks like nothing new has happened since 2005 in version control world. And that just doesn't seem right to me. I mean, in software engineering, every day or every week, new stuff is being published, right? Every week a new JavaScript framework is published. So why is there no new version control system after 2005? And that's the reason I started researching this topic, and I ended up finding a few version control systems. And in this short talk, I'll talk you through the Pijul version control system and how it's different from Git, right? So let's dive into it. So we first have to talk about this name, right? Because it's not a very easy name to pronounce for English-speaking people. It's a Spanish word, and it refers to a bird native to Mexico, a bird that is known to do collaborative nest building. So that's a very symbolic name, right? Because the system is being used to collaborate on, code projects. So that's why it's called Pijul. They actually contemplated changing it to a shorter name that would be better to pronounce, but then they reverted it again and said this is uniquely Googleable, and well, they have a point there, I guess. So Pijul it is. It is a distributed version control system, so like Git, and the user interaction is said to be more simple because of its basis on a sound theory of patches. So there's an entire mathematical theory behind Pijul that says if we model all changes as patches and we make sure that they are atomic, then if you create everything that you change and put it into a patch, you will not have the drawbacks of snapshot-based approaches like Git. Another version control system that is known for being based on patches is Darks. Darks was published in 2003, but never really got very popular because it was said to be very slow. And Pijul is essentially trying to replicate the way that Darks did things, but then try to speed up, the slowness. It also features interactive recording. We will see that in the demo that I'll do in a few minutes. So it was written in Rust And since April 2017, Pijul is also used to develop Pijul, right? So the entire Pijul code base is also in a Pijul repository since then. And you can also use free code hosting at the website they call the Pijul Nest. So nest.pijul.com is where you can host your Pijul repositories. So what is this patch-oriented design? So a patch, like I said, is an intuitive atomic unit of work that focuses on changes instead of differences between snapshots, which is the way that Git works. And applying or unapplying a patch doesn't change its identity, which means that the end result of applying several patches in a row is always the same, regardless of the order in which you apply them. So changes in Pijul can be applied in any order. Now this is great for cherry picking, right? Because the identity of the changes are maintained also after the cherry picking. So you don't have any need to manually find the commits that you have to revert or the commits that you have to pick. And Pijul does this by keeping track of dependent patches. We will also see this in the demo in a few minutes. And rebase and merge don't exist in Pijul. So applying a patch and its dependencies is like a Git cherry pick. So everything that you do in Git that's called merge or rebase is done by an applying of a patch in Pijul, which is equivalent and comparable to a cherry pick in Git. Just another example to show you how this patch-based design works. So if commits were not pieces of code, but bank transactions. So for example, this is my initial balance of my bank account. I have 100, let's call them euros, right? In Git, we would just store 100. In Pijul, we would store plus 100, right? And then I get paid by my employer. I get an okay salary, I think, but you know, everyone earn something different. This is my salary for this month, euros, not sure. So imagine I get paid 400, right? Then, 300. Then in Git we would store 400, which is the end result, right? The final balance of my account. And in Pijul we would store plus 300. And finally, winter is coming, so I have to pay my heating bill again. And after that I'll be out of money. In Git we will save 0 because it's the final result, right? And in Pijul we would store minus 400. And now you can also see that order doesn't matter in Pijul, because if we would switch the order here, we would still arrive at the same result. Whereas with Git, this will be entirely different, because only the final result of the change is recorded. Right, so I want to show a quick demo of the most basic operations in Pijul, just what we have time for, and then I'll conclude the talk and tell you what to do with this information from now on, right? And of course, you can make up your own mind after that. Okay, so let's increase the font a bit. So I have, I'm in a folder right now, and I start out by creating a repository, which is the command pijul init. And today I want to track a few movies that I've watched. So I'm calling this repository movies. It will create a movies directory that I can just change theirs to. And just before we do anything, I want to create, in Pijul this is called a channel, but it is comparable to Git branches, right? I'm creating a channel with the keyword fork, because what I want to do is keep track of the movies I watched this week, and then let's try to merge them to next week later, right? It's not called merge in Pijul, but you know what I mean, right? So we are on a current branch right now. We can show you right now. I'm calling it branch, but in Pijul it's called channels. So there's a main channel and a next week channel. We're doing some modifications on main, and we'll try to transfer them to next week in a few minutes, right? So let's start by tracking some movies today. So I saw a Tarantino movie this week. So the title of the movie and the year that it was published. I think that's about right. Right, so I'll just save this. Then I'll tell Pijul to add this file. So it has been added right now. And instead of commit, in Pijul this is called record. So you're not committing changes, but recording changes. And I can just provide a message here, watched a movie for grown-ups, because it's quite a grown-up movie, Django Unchained. Grown-ups. So I get an edit window. I can still edit my message if I want. This is the author key that refers to my account. And actually, this part here is the interactive recording. So if you do more edits here, it will have more lines here that say plus. But if I want to leave out some of these changes, so I can just comment them like this, and they will stay unchanged, and the other ones will be in the recorded patch. This time I just want to record everything. So the patch was recorded, I get a hash back, and now I want to record a second change. And this time I'm watching a movie with my kids, and they want to watch Elemental, right? Which is obviously a movie suitable for kids. So we have watched Elemental. We can still add everything. Can also be done with the star here. And have we recorded it yet? We haven't, so let's record it. Watched a movie for kids. And again, we get this same screen. We'll just save it. And now we can view the log, and we'll see that this is the initial patch. This is the first patch. I watched a grown-up movie. This is the second patch. I watched a kids movie. And what I now want to do is change to the next week channel. So let's do that. It's called channel switch next week. Next week. And if I now ask the Pijul log, of course it will be empty because no patches have been recorded here. And what I now want to do is apply the patch that has the kids movie in it, right? So we'll say Pijul apply. I've copied the hash. Here it is. It has been applied. And if I now do Pijul log, the entire log history is there. And the reason for that is because Pijul keeps track of dependent patches. So I asked them to apply this one. But of course, the file in which I did the edit for the kids movie was created in this patch, the movies.txt. So Pijul has a dependency here from this patch to the other one, and keeps track of these dependencies for all patches. So it knows what other patches to apply to be able to process these changes in the right way, right? And that's the way that Pijul works. Just for completeness, an overview of the commands. There are actually a lot less commands than with Git. And the one that I really like is, you know how when something breaks, we want to Git blame the stuff out of our repository, right? Well, in Pijul, this operation is called credit. I really like that positivity, right? Your coworkers are also creating good stuff, so we should give them credit from time to time. That's something that I really like about that. We should all configure aliases, right, for our Git blame, and then create Git credit or something. That would be nice to be more positive with each other. Okay, so it's time to wrap it up. Is Pijul ready for production? Well, it is in version 1.0. It's currently in a beta status. So if you want to know more about that, they wrote a good blog post on their website. But they will not introduce any breaking changes in new versions, so you can try it out and see how it works for you. I think it is quite promising, but of course the downside to a system like this is that it's not supported with the big hosting providers like GitHub and GitLab and what have you, so that might be difficult for adoption. But you know, there is the Pijul Nest, and you can host your own repositories there. So everything is in place to start a project and work with it. So what should you do with this information, and when do you use it? Well, you could of course use it for a hobby project to get a feel of it, or if you and your team members currently struggle with Git. So I teach this Git course regularly, and a lot of the students in my course are actually managers or test specialists or requirement engineers, Scrum Masters, so not necessarily software developers. And they really struggle with Git's snapshot-based approach. So I'm inclined to think that maybe they could handle a patch-based approach a bit better. And of course, if you spend way too much time on rebasing, merging, conflict resolution, and well, discussing about rebasing and merging with your team members. And if you're able to self-host or use the Pijul Nest, you can definitely try Pijul for a change. If you're interested in learning more, I actually recorded a podcast just before the summer holidays with Fujay. They are also here in the venue today. So Fujay podcast number 26 was published, I think, in July. And I interviewed a few people about version control, and the person I also interviewed is Pierre-Etienne Monnier, the lead committer for Pijul. And he has a few amazing stories about his vision for the product. For example, I asked him, don't you want to really grow your market share, right? Become more famous so that everyone knows your version control system. And he said, I do want to grow, he said, but I don't want to take market share from Git, because he also said Git is adequate. He says, I want to grow in a market share that doesn't use version control whatsoever. So for example, in legislation, people who pass bills, they are still working with, Microsoft Word legal and amending their bills and working with clunky software that isn't really up to the task of version control. He says, I really would want to use my system to improve things there. So not necessarily in the code space. Of course, he said you can work with it in the code space, but there's so much market share to be gained outside of software engineering. So I thought that was a really interesting point. So do check that out if you think it's interesting. I've got the slides up on my website if you want. Here's how to find me. I want to thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of your day.